Here we have a primary residence which we bought in 2005 for 1 million rand and sold recently for 2.5 million. With a profit of 1.5 million and a primary residence exclusion of 2 million, we'd expect zero capital gain, but we can see a capital gain of 150,000 rand. You see, with a residency period in the equation, the primary residence exclusion pretty much goes out of the window unless the residency percentage multiplied by the profit exceeds the primary residence exclusion. In this case, 90% of the 1.5 million profit is 1.35 million, which is less than the 2 million primary residence exclusion. This means that we ignore the primary residence exclusion and the amount for capital gain is the non-residency period of 10% of our profit of 1.5 million. What happened in this particular case is that we could have rented out 10% of the house and we had residence of 90% of the house. Maybe we even rented out 10% of our house to our private business while we lived in the other 90% of the property. Anyway, you can see here that our gain amount is the 10% of our 1.5 million profit. So our amount for capital gain is 150,000 rand. Let's have a look at a case where we made a bigger profit. I'll change the sale price to 32 million. Now our profit here is 31 million, and after the 2 million rand primary residence exclusion, our amount for capital gain is 29 million. Here you can see that the residency period of 90% times the profit of 31 million is more than the 2 million rand primary residence exclusion. So our capital gain is the profit of 31 million less the 2 million primary residence exclusion as normal. Only when the residency period percentage times the profit is less than the 2 million rand primary residence exclusion does the 2 million rand exclusion fall away, and our amount for our capital gain is the non-residency period percentage of the profit. With our selling price back to 2.5 million, let's recap. We can see we had residence for 90% of the time and we were non-resident for 10% of the time. If 90% of the profit was less than the 2 million rand primary residence exclusion, and we can see that 90% of 1.5 million is less than 2 million, then we ignore the primary residence exclusion and our gain is 10% non-residency period of the profit, which is 150,000 rand. Starting again with a different taxpayer who started a small business in 2005 with 1,000 rand and sold it recently for 3 million. We can enter these details as well as acquisition costs, improvements, etc. into the CGT calculator, and it will work out our profit for capital gains. We may be entitled to a deduction of 1.8 million once in a lifetime depending on conditions. So let's go through some of the fine print as is shown here when you click on the info button. The first 1.8 million of profit on a small business is exempt from capital gains tax provided that you are either over 55 or you were forced to sell the business because of ill health. The exemption is per person and not per business. The total value of all the taxpayers' businesses must not exceed 10 million rand. In the case of a partnership, each partner may be entitled to a 1.8 million rand deduction provided that the sale of the business is finalized within 2 years. Any unused portion of the exempt amount may be carried forward to a possible future business sale provided that the total value of all sales are less than 10 million rand. Selecting the stocks and shares option, we enter that we bought shares in the year 2000 for 100,000 rand. Along came the events of 9/11 in September 2001, and we were lucky that our shares only lost 50% on 1st of October 2001, and they were valued at 50,000 Rand on the valuation date. Let's say they never really completely recovered, and we sold them for 80,000 Rand recently. According to the law, we should be liable for a capital gain profit of 30,000 between the base cost of 50,000 and the selling price of 80,000. This hardly seems fair, as overall we lost 20,000 Rand. SARS agrees, and the loss limitation clauses in the Act say that there is no gain in a case like this. The calculator we are using caters for these laws and shows no gain.